Hey guys, my name is Misty Dotts. I'm a nurse practitioner student at East Tennessee State University. This video is a public service announcement for my women's health class, and it is regarding sexually transmitted infections in African American women. African American women are at higher risk to contract sexually transmitted infections than Caucasian women. So why is this, you may ask? There are actually a few reasons. For the purpose of my report, I did look at gonorrhea, chlamydia, and syphilis, basically because they're the most common and they're also highly treatable. They also all have very insidious symptoms. Sometimes the infection can be brewing for a while before someone ever knows they have it. So African American women are 10.7 times more likely than Caucasian women to contract gonorrhea. They are 9.2 times more likely to contract syphilis. And then they are 5.7 times more likely to contract chlamydia than Caucasian women. And so these are exponentially higher rates. And actually, sexually transmitted infections are exponentially higher across the board. The CDC released a report last fall saying that there were the most reported cases of sexually transmitted infections ever in 2017, and that was 2 million. 2018 report should come out sometime soon, and there are no hopes that that number is going to be significantly reduced. So why are sexually transmitted infections on the rise? Why particularly do African American women seem to get these more than Caucasian women? Well, there are several reasons that I found out through some research. Basically, more engagement in risky sexual activity. So what kind of activity is that? Having sexual relations or contact without using barrier protection. Also having sexual contact with someone that has contact with both men and women. So like men that have sex with men and men have sex with women, and not using barrier protection during this. Another reason is failure to recognize or to see any symptoms of this sexually transmitted infection, and having unprotected sexual contact with a person before they know they actually have it, or with a person that has it that they don't know they have it. And then finally, another very surprising to me reason was fear of discrimination and stigmatism from going to the doctor about a sexually transmitted infection. So first of all, having unprotected sexual contact with a person. My partner says that, they say, well, my partner says that it doesn't feel as good. It's not as good with using a condom. My argument to that is, what kind of person is this? You talk to your partner and you say, we need to do this. We need to use protection, barrier protection. And you say, well, he says, it doesn't feel as good. So what kind of guy is it that you would be having sexual contact with, that doesn't care enough to protect you and use protection? Number two, what does it say about you that you feel like that you want to be with the guy that won't protect you? So, there's that. Secondly, having access to health care. A lot of these women can't afford to even go to the doctor when they recognize that they have an infection, or they can't afford to go get barrier contraception, or barrier protection. So why is this? They don't have insurance. They, don't have transportation. Different reasons, they can't afford to go and get barrier protection or to get checked and say, I have this sexually transmitted infection and I need to get treated. And then finally, it really blows my mind that we're in the 21st century and discrimination is still, a problem. And it actually is, it's really, really sad because if, a person's being discriminated against, they feel like, hey, they're looking at me like I'm weird, I'm a different race and I have, an infection, and, they're like, oh, this is typical. So, that is inherently wrong. So my suggestions for ways to overcome this disparities in African American women and sexually transmitted infections are: one, easier access to barrier protection. So I know, like in my county, you can go to the health department, go to the window, and tell them you need some condoms, and they will give you a bag of condoms. But some people might be really apprehensive about that. It's kind of embarrassing. So I feel like that we really need to have really easy access to barrier protection. Whether, we start putting it at the post office, the government could have a website where you can go online and order free condoms shipped directly to your house, privately, discreet packaging. That would be amazing. I mean, how many people are gonna, if they can't go for their routine health physical, they can't go to get tested for an STI, how many people are going to be able to afford to go to the health department and say, I need some condoms? Most of us have a phone. We have access to the internet at some point. They could get online and order government-funded barrier protection online, shipped directly to their house very discreetly. No one would know. Number two, I propose that it should be part of legislation that women should have access to a well woman visit and any subsequent visits that they would need at least once a year. This should also include PAP and mammogram if it's time. Now I know, like our health departments and stuff, they have programs, they don't have, those are not always free. A lot of the health departments, they have a limited amount of funds for that. And then they're out, and then, oh well, next year we'll have more. Guys, why does the government not pay for something like this? If they don't, they're going to be looking at an epidemic of sexually transmitted infections before long. I feel like that it should be the right of every American woman to have a PAP, to have a pelvic exam, to have a mammogram, and a clinical breast examination. And they also should help women get to that. So get to that appointment and back home. So like a taxi voucher or an Uber voucher, some way that they can get to their appointment and back. And then finally, the final barrier reason that African American women don't access health care and barrier protection like they should is because of discrimination. As I said, it's the 21st century. Why is this still a problem? I propose that someone needs to set the standard for a zero tolerance policy for discrimination in healthcare. Whether it's, Linda LPN, Mandy medical assistant, Sally secretary, whoever, anybody that comes in contact with a patient, if they are found to be acting derogatory, say anything that could be derogatory, you know, they're gonna have to have a zero tolerance policy. It should be like a red rule. Basically, one strike, making a person feel like they're less than another person, you're out. The reason it should be a red rule is people's lives are at stake. People's ability to bear future children is at stake. Um, if these infections go untreated, sterility is compromised. Um, and I feel like that we're at the point in the United States that this should not be an issue. However, it seems like it still is. And that's why I believe that it should be a zero tolerance, red rule. You're found doing this, or, you know, it's, you're gone because lives are at stake. So, I really enjoyed this project. And I know that my professor, Dr. Tree, she's really an expert on the STIs. And after I realized that, after I chose my topic, I was a little bit apprehensive. But I have found that I have been very passionate about this. Women should have easy access to contraception. If it's not male condoms, then it's female condoms. The United States government should help us provide those easily without them even having to go get it. Women should have access to free well woman visits, at least annually, and any follow-ups that are needed as far as pertaining to like treatment of sexually transmitted infections. And then finally, discrimination, zero tolerance. Thank y'all very much for listening. I know I went over the time limit, but I felt like there was a lot of information to give. And please let me know if you have any questions.